I guess before going into some of the specific questions that we received, I would say that the overall type of questions reflect a little bit of an interest in understanding actually what the application is looking to actually convey. And so I would say there's kind of some points that we want to raise and just make sure that everyone's clear. First of all, cities don't have to submit a perfect application. We're not looking for perfection in terms of a perfect narrative or a perfect, let's say, track record, or a lot of technical or quantitative information. So, don't let the, as they say, the perfect be the enemy of the good here in terms of your application. We're looking really more for a story. The story that you tell really is what matters. So we're looking for a narrative of what you're currently doing as a city in the area of sustainable trade. And how you want to share that information with a larger community of cities that this project and this award and the award network that will actually spring from the award ceremony after the 27th of June, how this will actually be able to take it into the future and develop it further. So the idea here is not to be to think of things perfect in a perfect way, but your story, and then also how you would want to maybe improve that or share that with a larger community of like-minded cities in the European Union. Obviously, this can be a whole range of different types of media. They could be photographs, they could be newspaper stories from different actors in your city, whether it be the NGO community, civil society, church organizations, private sector companies that are engaged in sustainable trade, or that are championing those types of sustainability initiatives. So it could be third-party data that you could use. Websites can be provided. Information on how your city is actually working vis-a-vis sustainable public procurement, or recognizing third-party sustainable labels like fair trade, like Rainforest Alliance, organic, and others in your purchasing and your activities as a city. So that's important in terms of what type of, let's say, supporting evidence. Obviously, impact is important, but it's not necessarily 100% required. So sometimes it's hard to demonstrate whatever you're doing in the realm of sustainability, how it has a tangible impact. Maybe it's kind of an indirect impact. So if, for example, you are supporting, or through public procurement, you are essentially supporting or using the voluntary sustainability standard or labels, for example, as a proxy. Obviously, that's an indirect impact that would be shown down, let's say, downstream. So that is also fine. We don't necessarily have to have a demonstrated city level impact. Basically, the answer is the award does focus on trade, and the trade that is between an EU city and an extra or non-EU city. Mostly we were looking at developing countries. However, procurement, in terms of sustainable public procurement, to the effect that you're looking to show how your city is engaging with sustainable procurement and different standards that support that, would be very, very relevant for your application. So please, if you can, in whatever way that you recognize labels such as UTZ certified, Rainforest Alliance, fair trade, organic, for example, any of these sustainability standards, these consumer-facing labels, and others that may not be consumer-facing but still may have a sustainable impact, whether it be labor or whether it be economic or otherwise, please do try to quantify that when you are submitting your application. So that would be, I would say, important. Also, in terms of the issue of procurement, if you are moving toward a policy or you're trying to define a policy, any type of, let's say, documentation that discusses the policy and how it's implemented would also be quite interesting to receive. So that, I mean, this is a question from a city. That's perfect. I mean, obviously, we're, you know, an explicit fair trade or other sustainability type program is completely relevant, and I think that in this case, it would be very well reflected and regarded in your application. So, insofar as you can provide specifics as to what the sustainability strategy will contain, so detailed types of points as to what you're, you know, how you're going to essentially develop the strategy or implement the strategy, what are the various components of the strategy, what are your expected, let's say, outcomes or impacts of that strategy, fair trade or otherwise, would be very, very useful. But I think, and again, I think as you say, or as the question indicated, it also hits upon core sustainable development goals, such as SDG 2, which could be considered very relevant in terms of sustainable agriculture at a, let's say, developing country origin level. SDG 8 could be involved, which would be decent work or social and labor conditions that are considered sustainable and practices that want to be continued or enhanced. SDG 12, obviously, sustainable consumption and production, looking both at the origin of the production and then at the consuming level or the consuming side at the city level in the European Union. And then others such as partnerships for development, which could be, for example, SDG 17, how cities are engaging with other organizations, whether it be civil society, whether it be the private sector, whether it be church communities, whether it be NGOs or others, toward moving toward a more sustainable or supporting sustainable practices. So I think any way that you can I would say identify what you're doing as a city strategy vis-a-vis the fair trade movement or vis-a-vis sustainability in general and the SDGs would be highly regarded. So so in terms of the project, that would be a joint project with the ITC, DG Trade, and the winning city. We're looking at this as more of a right to have to do a project, right? We don't want to force a project upon any city, and we don't want to make this become a burden rather than an opportunity or an exciting program to implement. So I would consider it basically an option. I mean, if there would be no interest or significant budgetary or staffing issues related to the implementation of a project jointly with the ITC and DG Trade, that should be noted in your application. So we should, you know, provide as much information as you can as to any limits that you would foresee vis-a-vis the implementation of the project. Just to kind of clarify the way that would work in terms of the overall project implementation is that the funding would be coming directly to ITC. So the city would not receive any funding from the European Commission. It would be basically a funded project to the ITC as the official implementer in partnership with the winning city. Furthermore, the costs of any local activities in a developing country, city, for example, would be borne by ITC through ITC's channels and our procurement policies utilizing the funding that we receive from DG Trade. So there would be no, if you will, financial flows from the city to a developing country context. It would all be taken care of by ITC, as well as any travel that the city staff would be engaging upon. So ITC would cover the travel, airline travel, all the per diems, the DSAs, we call them the daily standard allowances in various countries. So we would pay for your airfare, your hotel costs, your meals, all the incidentals, as if you were going on a business trip for your city. It's the same concept. So we would really take the responsibility of developing the project and implementing it. The city would be really the knowledge partner in this case, I think, in the sense that you as a city management team would know obviously a lot more about this type of implementation at a municipal level than we would, for example, from the trade perspective. So that's where I think the partnership could be quite interesting going forward. I would say again, for this, in terms of the overall project team that the municipality or the city presents, with ITC, insofar as your application goes, I would identify which types of individuals you would want to bring in from various let's say departments in the city administration. So we want to make sure that there's no issue of conflict of interest or any type of conflictual issues inside the overall city administration. We are open to having various individuals from various different divisions or departments in the city contribute to this project. So if there is a procurement individual or there is a individual in another section that may have specific experience or know-how that would be beneficial, or indeed there are other individuals in the city itself that don't work for the city that may have a sustainability knowledge, for example, those people are completely welcome to be part of the overall team that implements this project. So we don't want to limit, if you will, the city team that would implement the project to just come from the administrative group, if you will. They could also come from a external non-city administrative position. They could come from a company. They could come from civil society. Because again, we're not being exclusive here. We want to make sure that we draw upon the best resources and that have knowledge to implement this project in the field. So for trade partners, this could be, again, a wide variety of individuals. So it could be obviously people that come from civil society or NGOs in the community. So a fair trade organization based in, for example, a German city or elsewhere. It could be someone from a church network. It could be someone from a private sector company that has been engaged in sustainability in whatever way. So we're talking about any individual that's coming from a different, if you will, walk of life that lives in that city or is based in that city that can actually provide the application signature, basically. So we're really open to a lot of diversity and variety here. Just please remember that in the application form, it does have to be signed by the municipal authority, mayor, for example, or civil administrator of the city for it to be a valid application. But the data, the overall application can be completed by individuals, organizations that are external, if you will, to the city administration. Indeed, this is a very good question. We can go beyond, if you will, the concept of a certified label. Okay, so that's just one opportunity or one possibility. So if you're talking about sustainability via other tools or other channels beyond standards, beyond certification, that is indeed possible. So that goes back to my opening remarks at the beginning of the webinar, where we discussed the issue of impact. So indeed, in this question, it can be indirect impact, so not directly measurable, if you will. So any type of information that you can provide in terms of how your procurement policies or how your project partner cities or your partner or twinning cities are benefiting from this from your, if you will, sustainable sustainable trade type projects or interventions would be fine. So again, We don't need to have a specific direct type of impact. A indirect impact is also fine. Indeed, yes. So we would also it's a very good question from Lisbon. Thank you very much for submitting that. Indeed, if you're already in the process of looking forward to create this plan, again with what you mentioned here, startups, which is actually quite nice because it talks about, as we mentioned, I think in the documents, like an ecosystem or a community. With different partners such as civil society and the private sector, this is exactly what we're looking for. So I would say please do provide this type of information in your application as much as you can. Obviously, if it's still a process or still a plan, it's still in draft. But regardless, it would be very, I think, useful for us. Good question. No, it's not mandatory. So it is not a requirement that you have a partner or a city twinning. But I would say that insofar as one of the last questions is in terms of a project idea that you would want to develop with the developing country city. If you have any ideas, either ideas for projects or ideas for, let's say, your target or potential candidate city for the project, would be interesting for us to know, to have more information on that.
Yeah, good afternoon, and Fabio de Franceschi speaking from the nice Charlemagne building in Brussels, DigiTrade. Maybe not what I can add to what Joe said. I mean, the impression I have from the question received today and also in the past webinars is that there is a very wide variety of projects, programs, experiences, initiatives that are done by cities, and that maybe you would be doubtful whether they fall into the fair and ethical, let's say, area. But I would definitely encourage you to put them in the application, because in fact they are parts of what we imagine as the range of things that cities can do and actually do on fair and ethical and sustainable trade. So please do not refrain from adding information about your city policies and initiatives, because they what we have heard in these webinars is it's all very interesting. It's also very stimulating for a discussion on the contribution of cities to fair and ethical trade, and also they would represent a very good base for discussion in the activities we are planning for the fair and ethical network that will be composed of applicant cities. So by applying and by providing examples of what you do in your city, you will also feed into this discussion on good practices and exploring from your point of view what else you can do, what you can learn from other experiences. And so, and of course, this can I mean, to build up this base, we need your input. So I would encourage you to have a broad view about what you can put in the application. And again, something that Joe has mentioned in the past. Please bear in mind that, of course, if you have numbers, analysis, that will be counted. But what we're really interested in is the narrative, is your approach, is your ideas, on what you do and what you you're planning to do in fair and ethical and sustainable trade. So have a broad view on your potential contribution and on the things you can insert in your application eventually. And of course, we are here if you have further doubts. I mean, we are here to clarify and to support you in your application. I mean, on how to present the data or how to relate your policy. So please, I mean, keep writing to us and asking us questions, and we will have further occasions. But even between webinars, I mean, we are here to support you in completing your application. Even if in languages that are different from English, if that can be helpful. I mean, we have different language skills in the team, and if we don't have them personally, we can of course ask for translations. So ask us without hesitation.